say it again. Who I am, my social security number, and where I live.
Your mother's maiden name. No. Who you are, what you do, and what your kind of personal philosophy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but that was the hard part you said. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what I would tell my younger self is listen, try and ask as many questions and do as many things as possible with other people. I'm glad I did meet, the people that I met, but I feel like, again, probably could have met a lot more people, made more connections. I didn't even spend that much time, retrospectively with the film group up until my senior year.
I just wanted it to be a conversation and there's just a camera over the shoulder.
Accept that there's people that are going to be better than you at that specific thing. So I know there's going to be someone that's better at editing.
And you could sit around and say, well, I haven't started on the main script because I'm waiting for it to be inspired, right? When you show up and you sit down and you go to your spot, the inspiration does come.
If I don't put my skin in the game, shed a bit of blood, how could I expect for the return I'm hoping for to be as severe as the sacrifice?
A lot of people will be like, I could never do, I have no idea how to do, and I didn't either for the most part. It's just sitting down and taking the time to learn it once, and then when you do, it's like, oh my gosh.
Welcome to another episode of this podcast. I am your host, Trip Fosco. I am going to just introduce our guest today. Her name is Cheyenne Nichol. She went to school with me at NAU, and we became really good friends our senior year, working together in the gear room, which at every film school is called the cage for some reason. And we also worked on projects together. I didn't get to work on her thesis project, but it was the biggest project at school at the time. She did a really good job. She worked with my old business partner, Colin, on that one. We talk about him a little bit in this conversation. But mainly we just talk about, the difference between doing and saying, which is a very big thing for me. On the previous episodes, I've talked about how I feel like my school was too focused on the theoretical, the analytical side of film, whereas, we could have benefited from more practice. But, what they say, you point a finger out, you get four more pointed back at you. So it's easy for me to say that they could have done a better job of making me do more work, but who's to say, one, I would do the work, and two, why didn't I do the work if I really wanted to do it? So we talk about that. She has a great point about saying, film until you're sick, I think is the way she put it. The next thing, another highlight we talked about is how you don't always have to be a technical person to be good at filmmaking. I think one of the best things I heard from a teacher in school was, you can tell a really good story with a really bad camera and still do a really good job. There was a Sundance film that was won on a iPhone 4 or 5 or something like that, which is light years behind the cameras we have in our phones now. So, technical gear, yes, knowing all of that's a good thing, and there are people who do that, and they are the reason the industry works so well. But there's also the other side of it, which is, sometimes it's just about feeling. And lastly, we talk about her vision for a documentary she wants to do, some of the obstacles she is running into, and we talk about the limitations, you can have depending on your worldview and perspective and how to really do storytelling right. Sometimes you have to have a team, and that's the importance of having a team. And part of it is just putting it out there and hoping that you find that person along the way and get going. So I think this conversation was a really good one. I really love her work, and I look forward to seeing, what she's capable of putting out in the future. But I'm sure you'll love hearing from her. Doubt you'll like hearing from me.
I'm Cheyenne Nichol. I'm a videographer and photographer in Knoxville, Tennessee. I run a photo and video business. yesterday or a couple days ago, I had a shoot. It's for a television show called American Dream TV. So I shoot with realtors. So I do some stuff with them. And tomorrow I'm going to be filming. Actually, I don't know if I can say it, but with a
Yeah,
company,
don't worry about saying things that you're not supposed to be saying.
with the company in Knoxville. But yeah, just all over the place. I have been traveling a bit recently, North Carolina, to shoot some sports. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of both photography and videography.
That's awesome. Yeah, because we met in school doing video work. And so, like, I think my first question is going to be, like, how did you get into this? Because I met you when you were already doing this.
Yeah, and I didn't really know until going to see... hold on, my mic is, like, slowly inching into frame. It was, like, in my vision, and I'm like, wait a minute. So... yeah, I thought I wanted to be a nurse, and then I spent a summer volunteering at a hospital and realized I didn't want to do that. And it was between music or video, photo. I don't even know. I've always enjoyed taking pictures and videos and making stupid things. But I guess I didn't know what like was going on with college. I was like, I don't want to do a sit down job or anything like that. I should have taken business classes, and that's something I learned after, graduating. But I really have always enjoyed watching behind the scenes of how, they've made movies and TV shows. And so I think I was like, yeah, I definitely have more of an opportunity in, going into film and doing something creative like that. And even in college, I didn't know specifically where, that I'd end up starting my own LLC and, full-time doing that. But it worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how it happened. And, yeah.
So it happened in college. Was there ever any interest before that? Like obviously you said you liked watching how things are made and stuff like that, but a lot of people do that, So like, was there ever, because for me, in high school, I had this inkling that I wanted to do film school and do some video editing and stuff, but I didn't really come to decide that, because I went into school undecided and then kind of figured out my first year that I did want to do film stuff. So like, was there ever something like when you were young?
My grandpa was a photographer for his whole life, and so my mom also always had a camera and would take like sports pictures as a family or sports pictures when we were doing sports and stuff. And so I was always interested in that sort of thing. And I guess going into college, a lot of the colleges, when they say they offer film, it's like film studies. And I was like, I definitely don't want to do that. I want to learn how, and I had no idea of how to do anything at that point. And so my goal was I want to learn how to operate a camera, how to make stories, like just the basics. And that is what I got. But more so out of it, I think I like learned and met people who became more important. But I don't know if there was a specific point where I was like, yeah, I think this is what I want to do until, I don't know. A big one is like Bill Carter talking about his documentary, that sort of thing, and seeing that documentary and just hearing the backstory and learning about how tough it is to make films, but how important and like, I don't know, unique and lucky of a job it is. I was like, yeah, there's nothing else I can see myself doing. And that was probably in college or afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. So that's like kind of like the family history. You've got the Bill's story is a phenomenal one. If you haven't seen Miss Sarajevo, I think is the film we're talking about. it's really I think as much as I've just seen the trailer, but he also has a book, Fools Rush In, and his story is just, I mean, he just, you're just sitting in his class and then he'll just like throw this like almost trauma dump. It's not a trauma dump, but he just like gives you the like mind space of where he was and how like he went to go do this, and he had this like I work with this guy now who talks about massive transformative purpose, and like we should have a massive transformative purpose, like some giant, almost altruistic goal to try and achieve, and that's clearly, you know, when you hear the story, it's what you get from Bill.
Yeah. He's such a great storyteller, and like his enthusiasm for it is what is also like, when you're that into something and you care that much about something, you can't help but be enthusiastic. And so that, you know, inspires me on its own. Like he's just a dork with the camera, in all respect, but like he's so enthusiastic and is just wild in what he does. But yeah, it opened my eyes to like there's so many different opportunities for different types of media, you know.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think a lot of people go into school thinking, oh, I'm gonna make movies. I'm gonna be in Hollywood doing that thing. And I have friends who did that. I have friends who are. I was talking to my friend's older brother the other day, my friend from high school, and her older brother is like location scout or something like that on like big name movies and TV shows. And I mean, we both know Colin, who works with like he can just name drop a movie anytime, or a director whenever he wants, and it's like, okay, cool, you're sending a camera where, but it's kind of like you start to realize when you come out into like into reality, but like out of school, you start to realize that like there's such a wide breadth for this work.
And yeah, there's so much more than you can even imagine, and then it's also like harder. It's a good thing, but like the competition for it, and it's tough, you know. Like what Colin's doing is sick, but again, there's so much, like, you know, I could never.
Yeah. Oh, the technical know-how he has to have, and when he just starts talking about like, oh, this, that, the other thing, oh, this link to that, I'm like, dude, I love it. I think, and that's one of the cool things, and one of the things that kind of inspired me to start this is everyone who, like, I think art is like the blend of like ethereal kind of like heady stuff and technical, actual like hands-on stuff, and where like you see like Colin in the more the technical thing, and I can definitely get into the more heady spaces. I think, you know, how people create art is like in between those two. And so you're right, there's definitely that world for that, but I think one of the things that I had trouble with on set was kind of the political scheme within sets. You know, this person, or not even that, it's more of like, I don't know, it seems like a lot of people were just there to be there because they weren't as like into it as they wanted to be. And I was on some like reality shoots, and it wasn't anything like an A24 film, so I don't know what that looks like, but I'd imagine it's pretty much the same across the board. Like at the end of the day, a job becomes a job, and you have to show up.
Yeah.
So kind of going into that, you talked about Bill Carter being like an inspiration for you to start. You know, what kind of inspires you today?
Kind of what you were saying, and I can't repeat it back to you, but I have realized that like just in like, if you break it down to the simplest form of what I can do, I take pictures and then give them to someone. Or I saw this really cute baby with her parents at a pumpkin patch, and I was like, hey, can I take a picture? I'll send it to you free. It's just, you guys are so cute. Whatever. And so I sent it, and the joy that like you see someone get, or even if they're paying for it, but like family pictures or, you know, child pictures, there's something so special and intimate. Or like weddings that I've shot, being there when the bride and groom are exchanging vows and they're doing it privately, and so it's like only you are experiencing that moment with them, and so that means a lot. But so that, and I would say I have tons of room for improvement, but I'm pretty good at it. And so right now what I want to do is, continue being stable, but to use my video capabilities for better good. So I'm not necessarily sure what that is. I'd love you and I have talked about documentaries and different things that we'd be interested in, but it's hard to find funding for that sort of thing. So yeah, but it's a fun challenge, of both the physical parts, the mental parts, and I'd say like the realistic parts of putting something together, how much you can scrape together. And I've been lucky to, I do think that there are people around, you always see them and they're just there, for whatever. But you and Colin, especially in college, like we're shooting, after hours and just doing fun stuff or messing around in the music booth. Just, it made me more understanding of, okay, this is what it means, and gets more into it. I don't know if that makes any sense, what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, because like it kind of, and that's the thing. It's funny that you say that, like, doing the extra stuff. That's one thing I wish I did more of, because there's always, we're always comparing ourselves to each other. I think this has come up on every single one of these I've done, but like I think of like people who we went to school with, I see now who are like doing as much hustling as they did in college, but even more now because it's their whole thing. And like they didn't really do much in school, but they were hustling. And then there's people I've kind of connected with from school who were hustling, but in a different way. And they were like, because they had to, do jobs that didn't, coincide with this. And so now they're kind of going in a completely different path. Whereas like the people who like were dedicated, motivated, and just kept, now that they're doing like some really cool stuff. And I think that's just like something I really wish that I took more advantage of in school, but also know that, and then you got to look back and say, like, I also went to school the way I was for the reason I did.
1,000%. I agree with you. I've thought so many times, even working in the checkout room, I was able to get any equipment I wanted if it was available. What didn't I do? I should have been shooting every weekend something, but that's not understanding or appreciating, what you have at your disposal. But two, I was just talking to my mom about this the other day, that like you, me, I almost said Trip, Colin, Javier, like we had plans to do all sorts of things, but then we had my thesis film we shot in Sedona, and then COVID happened. And so we never got to meet back up together. And I feel like that huge loss for us. It really sucks. Like looking back, then now sucks so much, because that was when I was like, oh, let's do this. I want to get some stuff going right at the end. And then, but we can't control what happened. But what I do like is like, you do see that it's like people go off their own ways, because that's how life is. Different things work for different people. But there is something to be said. Like, it's so impressive seeing random music videos, whatever, but for actual names. And oh yeah, the guy I went to school with was first AC on that, or like whatever. But just so impressed, and trying not to, compare yourself, but there's only so much you can do. We're human, and that's, at least for me, that's something that is like, but it holds me back, and I know that. But again,
well, and like I and the same thing, like I think it happens to most people, right? Where you think, oh, there's more I could have done. And I think the best thing is, like I talk to people in the business world a lot, and one of the things that I love is when people say like, oh, the best day to plant a seed was like a tree was yesterday, or like 10 years ago, but the second best is like right now. And I think that's what I'm doing here. And we talked the second I asked you if you would want to do this, you were like, that's so cool. I was just thinking I need to be doing more stuff. And I think that's everyone who's in a creative out.
It's the creative's problem. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, I need to do more. But like, how do I do more? And I should have done more. And then, so it's like
take on too much. And now, and for me, like it's, suddenly out of nowhere getting busy, and then that messing up, like I'll just use for an example, like my social media. I haven't posted in months, and like last thing was something dumb for my birthday. Just be like, hey, I'm still alive. But it's so tough being the boss and the marketing team and the creative and all of that, as well as speaking for myself, but probably a lot of people. I'm a perfectionist. So if it's for me, there's always something I can do a little better. And that's something that is like, tough to not let you, not open up the timeline because you're like, I've got to deal with this.
Yeah. And like, I find myself falling into that trap of, if I'm making a TikTok reel or an Instagram reel or whatever it is, I put as much work into editing that as I put it into editing anything else. And I see what these other people put out and I'm like, oh my gosh, if I even left in all those mistakes I see, no one else is noticing them. And apparently if you do leave them in, you'll get more comments. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, I was talking to someone the other day about this, but like knowing, kind of budgeting and setting those boundaries for like, is this my perfectionism? Am I like, does this need to be as good as it is? Or can I let this one slip and then focus more of my attention on something else?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've been hearing a lot, and by hearing, I mean just on Instagram reels or whatever, that it's like less, not that you don't put in the effort, but it's less of one thing's got to be perfect. You got to do a lot. And that's where it's like, okay, well, then it makes no sense to be worried about the small things. Just put it out and, over time you'll get better. But yeah, I totally, same boat. Yeah, it's hard because there's so many talented people, and now we have access to seeing all of them, and it's, hard not to judge yourself.
Yeah, because like when you see, you see an 18-year-old like fresh out of high school start like DMing like NFL athletes and they get famous. I don't know who this is. I saw his stuff, but I was just like, man. And that's like spurs that feeling of like, oh, I should have been doing more when I was 16, 18. Yeah, but you didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. Then again, I also know that I've reached out to, I've cold called a lot of people. I've cold called businesses. I've tried to, get in my foot in the door at random places. I've walked into shops. I've done a lot of that stuff that they say, like, just do it. And it's like, it does take, you have to have a high threshold for rejection.
Yeah.
And I think, looking back on it, you got to give yourself a little bit more grace and just say, you know what, if I should have done it then, why don't I do it today? And kind of going forward. But yeah, it's definitely hard playing that comparison game.
Yeah, but awesome that you're doing this because, like you need to put out some podcasts. Yeah,
and like I found myself like really just, we talked about like finding things you want to do and like, or things that like the massive transformative purpose. I just kind of like boiled it down and like looked at my life and said, like what do I want to do? And it's like I want to set up and like film stuff, take advantage of this gear I've put so much money into.
Literally.
And then the second thing is like I want to have conversations with people who are creative. And like the last person I talked to is a writer and a humorist, and he was like, when I told him about it, he's like, creatives, that's a very interesting, like very general term. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, well, every time I talk to someone who's like a graphic designer or a photographer or like, I just find myself wanting to like dissect their brain and figure out like, how'd you get into this? How do you start something like this? And so
I think creative too is like, it's being used because I'd say the general public, civilians, don't know, the difference between a cinematographer, a DP, and a PA, and all these different things. And so creative, you do the creative stuff, all right, so that's what you're going to do. And so it's a bit easier there. But yeah, totally agree with you. There's so many, it's so interesting. Like, I miss talking to friends, first of all, about like creative stuff, and there's only so many people that like get really interested in it.
Well, and then there's the exciting avenues you kind of jump down too.
Yeah, but it's tough. It's tough, but it's fun. So not the podcast, I'm saying like have a creative lifestyle is tough, but it's really fun, and I think that sticking it out overall is like proven to be worth it. That's what hoping,
Sorry about that.
You're okay.
Close it up shop.
I think what we were talking about was, if you remember what you were saying.
Oh yeah, I just finished up saying that, no, it's good that I was happy that you asked me to do the podcast, because I think, yeah, it's hard being in front of the camera too. Like, this is weird, but it's something that obviously I should be comfortable doing if I'm, having other people do it. But
I say that all the time, and I'm so uncomfortable on camera.
Yeah. But no, I love peeking into other people's minds and seeing how they come up with ideas, because, there's just so much to be taken from other talented people in a respectful way.
Yeah. Like, on the first one, I asked my buddy Nathan if he's another filmmaker, like videographer, and I was talking to him, and I asked him, like, what kind of project, if you had like the dream project you could start, like the one that keeps you up at night every once in a while, that you're thinking of all the time, anytime you get a free moment you think about this project, and I'm gonna ask you next so you can start thinking about that one. But I asked him that, and he was like, well, there's like these PSA things that I want to kind of do, and then he told me what it looked like, and it was a really interesting shot, and I was like, sorry, my phone almost went away. It was an interesting shot, and I really liked it, but he also was like, can you not include it in the podcast? And I was like, sure, yeah, no, like, I'll cut that scene out because we don't want someone stealing your shot idea. But like, to hear it, I was like, that is such a cool concept, and I love like what you're talking about, and I can see it in my head, and that's gonna look so cool when you create it. But yeah, it's like, where did that come from? And like,
Yeah.
It's fun to talk to people and kind of get that conceptualized.
I saw on the local news coverage something about the Scarborough 85, and so I looked it up, and there haven't been like movies or anything really done on it, but it was the first black students, it was 85 of the first black students to integrate Oak Ridge High School and Robertsville Junior High School in Oak Ridge, Tennessee in 1955. And so I live right by the area, and I mean, right now the prices of housing's going up, people are being pushed out, communities are being affected, and but just at this point, I forget the age of them, but they're getting older. But I would want to do something of a documentary, something like that. And I would want, I don't think I would be the best person to ask or figure out necessarily the storyline. So I do have some other people that I would want to talk to, but again, it's like, yeah, the money, the time, and it's also the thing where like it want to do it once and you want to do it well. So, yeah, but that's,
Especially because you have kind of a ticking clock on the situation.
yeah, yeah. So there's kind of pressure and time for it, but, yeah, I don't know. So that's just one thought that, I've been sitting on for a couple months.
I mean, that's, and like, I love how you're kind of coming from the space too, where you're like, I'm not necessarily the person who needs to be upfront, like asking, like creating the storyline, but like I would love to be. This is a project I'd want to do, and support whoever that is or whomever that is.
Yeah, because I think the story, and they approved it, but the story and why it was on the news was, should they allow in the like Oak Ridge or Knoxville, Tennessee history books just the information about the 85 students? And so I'm like, but we do live in a time where things aren't allowed necessarily, or are conditioned so that they aren't put out in a certain way. And I'm like, that's insane that something like that would be up for debate. It was approved, to my knowledge, to be included, but it's interesting. So obviously there's, when I've watched some interviews and some of the students who are now much older talking about what it was like and that they were being called names and stuff. But just to see how it, everything it's kind of cyclical, of hate and segregation and anyway, but just like how they see it now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's I would definitely watch that, and I think I mean, I'm very interested to hear more about that, but that'd be a super cool thing. So like the end result would kind of be, do you think it would be a short film? Would you want it to be a series? Like, what do you think?
I would love it to be, I mean, I hadn't thought about a series. I get it. I mean, part of it would depend on where the story goes, right? If it's more individualistic on the students, I don't know how many would be willing to, how many are alive, those different things. But I think it would definitely be like feature length, ideally, because I'd like to get enough interviews and stuff for even just it to be, what's the word? Like oral history, but captured.
Yeah, like
Archival. Thank you.
but like
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, it's either a feature length or something that would be a series, but it would be longer than like a 12-15 minute short film, because I do think that then again, I don't know, like anything could be a short story. And so maybe I've thought about like, well, what if a little short story as, the trailer to the bigger project, or as the pitch for making the bigger project. But
Right, and there's also the added factor of, like you said, like doing what you can with what you have. Like I think we started talking about earlier, like it's hard to get funding to do documentaries you want to do and stuff like that. And I think that's one of the bigger roadblocks. And there's people who are out there who are like, oh, I buy this course and I can show you how to get funding, or reply to my Instagram, and I'm sure they do know what to do, and I'm sure that they give out valid information, but it's still going back to what you were saying about wearing a bunch of hats. It's no longer just like being a videographer or like a cinematographer and a director and a producer. Now you have to also be like an executive producer, going out and getting money and whatever that looks like. So I'm trying to look into right now for myself how to offload a lot of this stuff that I can't do.
yeah, that's where I'd like to, I'm getting there. I'm getting it to the point where I'm like, okay, I've got way more stuff than I need to be doing on my own. But yeah, there's a certain level of you need to let go of some of the, creativity aspects and perfectionism. But yeah, that's awesome to hear that would be helping you, though.
Yeah.
That you're like in a place where you want to offload it. That's sick.
Well, yeah, because like, I mean, I'd love to offload it. I don't know if I can. I mean, more like using AI for like menial tasks and stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But we're like, just looking at Fiverr for like seeing if there's people who can make social posts out of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
I would much rather, like an idea I've thought about is like reaching out to someone like Bill and being like, hey, are there any students in your class looking for an internship? Because I would love to, tap some cheap labor and give someone experience.
You should reach out to him.
Yeah?
Because his students someone would probably take you up on it, or it would at least be a great offer, and they would get an inside glimpse at it. I think you should ask him. What's the worst that could happen? He says no. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. And so well, I've got a lot going on, but that is definitely something I've thought about, and I'm glad you're like, yeah, ask him. I mean, and like Bill is amazing. I think he's one of the what I really appreciated about him was not only did he teach us like what to do and how to do it, but he just he was, like you said, very motivated. He was very enthusiastic about it.
Supportive.
Yeah, and he was also very realistic about what it was, because I feel like a lot of school for us was a lot of theory and a lot of like the heady stuff, which was already an asset of mine. Like, it was something I could easily go through, and I wish that, like I said, I had more experience with cameras, and like if I could completely like build out a C500 and then put it away in like 10 minutes, that would have been like a really cool class, if that was like a 2-week course of just building and tearing down rigs to kind of prepare you for that. But kind of getting into this, and I appreciate like you doing this. I know it's late where you are, so I want to kind of cut it off a little bit here, like kind of get to a point where like we're trending downward, because I would like for you to have a pleasant day tomorrow, and you're doing me a favor. So I'll give you an option if you want to talk about like what flow state looks like for you and like what kind of gets you there. Or you could talk about, what you'd like to hear, coming up. Like when you first decided to switch from nursing to video or to film, one of those.
Shoot and edit until you're sick. Like, because learn how to shoot properly. I went like multiple years without understanding the color spaces or like log and stuff. I would just shoot in the standard profile, but yeah, take business classes.
I was fortunate enough that my dad's only stipulation for me getting a film degree was don't do documentary. And then he's like, wait, I got another one. You have to minor in business. So I took some business classes, and it's helped me. I could have definitely done a double major. I think that would have helped more. But yeah, I think that would be beneficial to anyone doing film.
Yeah. And then, yeah, I mean, if I could go back in time, there was a time when posting on, socials would get you work and stuff. So I should have just been going crazy, but you don't know until whatever.
Well, and like TikTok didn't exist when like, that's crazy to me. Just think about that. But like seeing what people put out now, like the Almost Friday or Friday beers or whatever they are, their stuff's great, but it started low budget, it went high budget. The same thing happened with the people on SNL, and it's like realizing like I would tell myself, like whatever it is, make it and make as much of it as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what I would tell my younger self is listen, try and ask as many questions and do as many things as possible with other people. I'm glad I did meet, the people that I met, but I feel like, again, probably could have met a lot more people, made more connections. I didn't even spend that much time, retrospectively with the film group up until my senior year, and then was hanging out more with, but that, gets narrowed down throughout the years when you specialize, and then you find actually the people who are doing more so the thing that you want to do. But yeah, I think there's, the sooner you enact, the better, and no point in being hard on yourself,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the second thing is on that is like the inverse too, because I love dualities. I just something about duality I love. I think the other side of it is, be okay with yourself at the pace you're going. Like, you're going at a pace that's comfortable for yourself. Push yourself, always push yourself. But at the end of the day, like, you're doing what you can. And like, there's definitely like a lot of there was a lot more limitations I had in college than I remember. And I look at it through the eyes of someone who has, 4 or 5 years experience out of college. And I'm like, oh, why didn't I just send that email? And it's like, well, because I didn't really know how to write a professional email. Like, what was it? Like, I would be like, hey, sup, could I film your business for $200? And now I'm like, this is why I can't book things, because there's kids doing it for $200,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough thing, we got to look out for each other in terms of pricing. But again, that's something that like, people gatekeep, and you don't know when you're starting out, but yeah, I love the improvement and growing, and yeah, just looking back even months ago, it's like, oh, when you learn one small like setting or whatever, and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, like, yeah.
Well, to kind of give a little bit of context to what you're saying, I was working on an After Effects project. When I first stepped into After Effects, I didn't know which way was up, and then someone showed me a very small, very specific thing, and then I was like, oh my god, this is crazy. And then I learned how keyframing really works, and like, because that's most of what After Effects can be. It can be anything for you. And then on this most recent project I'm working on, it's been exclusively what I've been using. And the first time I got into it, it was like just slogging it out, just trying to get to like the finish line of draft 1. And then I went back for draft 2, and I was done within like an hour. And then like now I got off the phone with the client and was like, he's like, yeah, can we like expand this and do this and change this? And I was like, yes, I can do all of that in probably like this week.
Like this week.
And a lot of people will be like, I could never do, I have no idea how to do. And I didn't either, but for the most part, it's just sitting down and taking the time to learn it once. And then when you do, it's like, oh my gosh, this opens up. And as creatives, we kind of have to wear all those different hats. But yeah, it is certainly something when you're like, yeah, it's just one small setting or whatever that'll make everything easier.
Just, yeah, blow the doors wide open. And then you get the additional thing, I think, you have to wear all the hats, but then you also have new ideas. Like, I'm like, oh, I can do those collage things. And I'm like, I'm not taking the time to do one of those collage edits because they're really cool, but I will not be rotoscoping. Someone else can do the rotoscoping. So yeah, I appreciate you doing this. And if you want to just close it out by saying who you are, where you are, and what you do. If you want to add like a personal philosophy, you can, but that's a lot I'm throwing at you.
So I'm Cheyenne Nichol. I'm a videographer and photographer in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I just go with the flow. That's my personal philosophy. Try your best. Try and prepare. And hopefully you're ready. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, but I mean, literally just the creative stuff. There's something fun, and even when you mess up or whatever, just in trying something new is fun. So personal philosophy, keep going.
Keep going, keep trying. New things. I love it. Well, thank you again. I do appreciate it. And then I'll cut it there. But